Stand by, All right, welcome back on SABC Channel 404. The conversation continue with the IFP leader, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as we reflect on the past 44 years since the IFP was formed. Of course, this weekend, the party will be holding its elective conference here in Ulundi. Shenge, just before we went on that quick ad break, you were talking about the role of the ANC in dividing the party. You have said that the ANC has betrayed you because at some point you were a member of the ANC Youth League. How did the ANC betray you?
Well, I gave chapter and verse, of course, about the defection of Mrs. Makhanya. But you see, as a cadre of the ANC, I was asked actually by Inkosi Albert Luthuli and Mr. Oliver Tambo. In fact, they sent Mr. Klopa Sibande, who later became the interim leader of the ANC in Gauteng. They sent him to my sister, who was married to a doctor in Davidton by the name of Mafu Dotwana, whose son is my PA now, to say that although our movement, by our movement I mean ANC, because I belong to the ANC, are opposed to the fragmentation of our country into homelands and into development to Bantustans, they were pleading with me that if Amakosi and representatives of the Zulu people in the districts elect me, choose me to lead, in spite of the policy of our movement, ANC, I must definitely take the lead because they are confident that I'll make sure that this doesn't achieve, the destiny it's supposed to achieve. In other words, you could make this area called KwaZulu Bantustan. So that's how is what happened. So therefore, and then there was a debate about the issue of economic sanctions and disinvestment, because the ANC mission in exile, established by Inkosi Albert Luthuli, our leader, had actually urging the international community to impose economic sanctions and disinvestment on South Africa. So there was a debate about this. And then one of these debates was held in Ethiopia in 1974. And I was invited together with my leader, Mr. Tambo. So we met in Nairobi, and in fact that day we stayed until the early hours of the morning, because he was worried because he was going to urge the audience to support his view that economic sanctions must be imposed on South Africa. And I was going to say that our people have not yet endorsed that policy. Then Mr. Tambo, as my leader, said to me, no, I think the best thing that you should go to Addis Ababa, but I'll stay behind because it will be bad if the two of us as leaders from South Africa disagree on an international platform. So I proceeded and I remained in Nairobi. So on my return from Addis, I decided to go to Lusaka to see President Kenneth Kaunda, and also to Dar es Salaam to see President Julius Nyerere, to thank them for giving sanctuary to all our exiles. We traveled in the same plane, in fact, with Mr. Tambo to Lusaka. Then in Lusaka, I was very warmly received by President Kaunda, who was then the president of the frontline states, all the states that belonged to this collective, which was called the frontline states. Apart from the dinner in the evening, he said, tomorrow I would like you to go to the office of my party, UNIP, to visit it. I went there, and he said, after that, come back to State House. When I got to State House, it was full of senior leaders. And I remember even the Prime Minister, Mr. Mainza Chona, was there. Dr. Kaunda then said to me, we as frontline states are very grateful to you for what you're doing, because after Sharpeville, when the apartheid regime, killed our people in Sharpeville in 1960, there was no political activity. Our leaders were in jail, some were in exile. But then he said, you've kept the liberation struggle alive as the only voice. But that is not enough, he said. I suggest that when you get back to South Africa, you must form a membership-based organization. Well, I was startled because being a member of the ANC, how could I start another organization? So I had to consult my leader, Mr. Tambo. So Mr. Tambo said to me, I must go ahead. I was surprised. So then, in 1975, then I then launched Inkatha. I got advice from my then Bishop Alpheus Zulu, who was the Anglican Bishop of the Diocese of Zulu then. He said I must rather lean on the cultural side, because if I'm saying that I'm founding a purely political party, it will suffer the same fate as other movements. So I stated that I structured the Inkatha Inkululeko Yesizwe, National Cultural Liberation Movement, on the ideals of the ANC as propounded by the founding fathers in 1912. That the struggle will be conducted through non-violent means.
All right. Shangi, if I can just interrupt you there for a minute. At what point now did you decide that the Inkatha Freedom Party is no longer going to be a cultural movement? It's going to be a political party now and contest elections?
Actually, it's a pity that you interrupt me, because I think that even your listeners would be interested, if I told my story, without interruption. I'm sorry about that.
No.
So, after I founded Inkatha, even the colors, the same colors, the ANC and so on, because we're virtually a front of the ANC. So, after that, we communicated with Mr. Tambo through emissaries, and sometimes we met in different places. We met in Mangoche, in Malawi. We met in Lagos, in Nigeria. I wanted to publish, a newspaper for the Inkatha. I went to Sweden. I approached an NGO there called CEDA. They said, no, we only deal with the ANC. So we can't deal with another organization. Then they said, well, unless Mr. Tambo agreed. But because we worked closely, I phoned him, and he came to Stockholm. And he actually nodded that they must give me money. And we actually published our newspaper through that. But I must tell you an incident which shows, this issue I'm complaining about as far as is concerned. Just then, one of my friends, Reverend Andrew Young from the United States, arrived. He was then the envoy of the United States at the United Nations. Then they told him that Buthelezi is here, your friend. Oh, then in excitement, the CEO of CEDA said, I'll arrange lunch, you'll have lunch. By the way, he said, you'll have another cherry on top, because you'll see Mr. Tambo too. But Tambo did not want that to be known that we were together, you see, for various reasons. So Eli was told that Tambo did not arrive. I had lunch with Mr. Andrew Young in the dining room. Tambo's lunch was served in a tray in the bedroom, in the same house, and so on. So we did kind of hide-and-seek sort of relationship. But I was really surprised, because, of course, it was Tambo and Inkatha, my leader, who had said that I must actually lead the so-called homeland of KwaZulu. So then, all along, we worked together all along. Then in 1979, Mr. Tambo then suggested to me that I should come to London with a delegation of Inkatha, because the debate hotted up on the economic sanctions and disinvestment, all over the world. And he said we must discuss it. So I left about 16 people to London. And Tambo came with his delegation, amongst whom was our former president, Mr. Mbeki. For 2.5 days, he put two issues before me. He said he wanted Inkatha to endorse the imposition of economic sanctions and disinvestment in South Africa, and also the armed struggle. So clearly our discussions were very cordial. There was no acrimony of any sort when we talked. And we couldn't agree, of course, but clearly I had no mandate to say that, I should endorse economic sanctions, because I addressed big rallies in Jabulani Amphitheatre, in Bloemfontein, at Langa in Cape Town, and I put the issue of economic sanctions, and people would always say, "We'll starve to death. We can't do that." They rejected that.
Right.
And the armed struggle too. The policy of the ANC has actually set up in 1912 was that we'll negotiate, because a lot of bloodshed had taken place when they dispossessed us of our land. I mean, a lot of our people died.
All right. Shane, so sorry to interrupt you there. Coming back to the IFP now, the leadership within the IFP, okay, I'm told we've run out of time for this particular segment, so we're going to throw back to Johannesburg and come back a little later on to continue this conversation with the leader of the IFP, Mangosuthu Buthelezi.